Gumbo. The word itself evokes images of steaming pots filled with a rich, flavorful stew. It's a dish that has been passed down through generations in my family, each cook adding their own twist to the recipe. And now, it's my turn to carry on the tradition. I remember watching my grandmother in the kitchen, her hands moving with practiced ease as she chopped vegetables and stirred the roux. She always said that the key to a good gumbo was patience. You couldn't rush the process, she would say. You had to let the flavors meld together slowly, simmering on the stove for hours until they reached the perfect balance. So, armed with her old recipe card and a determination to make her proud, I set out to make my first batch of gumbo. I gathered all the ingredients: onions, bell peppers, celery, garlic, andouille sausage, chicken, shrimp, okra, and of course, the holy trinity of Cajun cooking: flour, oil, and spices. I started by making the roux, a mixture of flour and oil that would serve as the base for the gumbo. I poured the oil into a heavy bottomed pot and added the flour, stirring constantly to prevent it from burning. It was a tedious process, but I knew that the roux was the foundation of the dish, so I persevered. Once the roux had reached a deep, chocolate brown color, I added the vegetables: the onions, bell peppers, celery, and garlic. The kitchen filled with the savory aroma of sautéed vegetables, and I felt a sense of accomplishment wash over me. This was starting to look like gumbo. Next, I added the andouille sausage, letting it brown slightly before adding the chicken. I seasoned everything generously with salt, pepper, and a blend of Cajun spices, stirring to coat the meat and vegetables evenly. The pot bubbled and simmered, the flavors mingling together in a delicious symphony of taste and aroma. After letting the mixture cook for a while, I added chicken broth and let it come to a gentle boil. I reduced the heat and let the gumbo simmer, allowing the flavors to meld together and deepen. I added the okra, a vegetable that would help thicken the stew, and let it cook until it was tender. Finally, I added the shrimp, letting them cook just until they turned pink and curled into tight little spirals. I tasted the gumbo, adjusting the seasoning as needed, and smiled as I realized that I had done it. I had made gumbo. As I ladled the steaming stew into bowls and served it with a side of fluffy white rice, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This dish, so steeped in tradition and history, had been passed down to me, and I had honored it with my own version. I knew that my grandmother would be proud of me, watching from wherever she was, knowing that her legacy lived on in my kitchen. And as I sat down to enjoy my first bowl of homemade gumbo, one knew that this would not be the last time I made it. This dish, with its rich flavors and comforting warmth, had become a part of me, a connection to my past and a promise for the future. Gumbo, I realized, was more than just a meal. It was a tradition, a heritage, and a love letter to my family and the generations that came before me.